Welcome back to the Forbidden News Update. I'm Chris Matthew. With me is Cory Hughes. Cory, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
And tonight our guests are Joe, Jen, and Ben from the Legit Bat podcast. How are all of you tonight?
How's it going?
Good. Thank you all for joining us. We had a great time on your show last time we were on Legit Bat. I love your show. It's a great combination of comedy and conspiracy. And if all you guys have not checked out Legit Bat, please do so. They're also right here on Rokfin and all the popular podcast platforms. So guys, thank you for joining us. Let's start with what got you all started down this lonely, cashless podcast road.
Just for fun, mostly. We just told this story on Truthzilla the other day. We got pretty detailed into our backstory, actually, but it was just for fun. It started out for fun, and it's still fun. When it stops being fun, I'm going to stop doing it. But it was just something we talked about for like a year and finally nailed down to start. We just started talking, and we never stopped talking, so here we are.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of the conspiracy podcasts we were listening to, though. Joe wanted to start it in fall of 2019, I think. And then 6 months later was after like COVID and stupid stuff. And then we started listening to more podcasts. And then it was kind of like, hey, we could do this too.
I was like, yeah. Half the show I listen to, I could totally do that.
Part of it was that we already talked about all the stuff that we talk about on the program. We used to just do that. Joe, Jen, and I have literally had hour-long conversations for years. So it was like, you know what? We should actually try to, because most of the time we were drunk. So it was like, we should actually find a way to like catalog all of these conversations because you don't have them with anybody else. And that was kind of the idea behind it, was just to have have a catalog of all of these conversations and topics that we end up pulling out of our asses. Instead
Which
of,
is why I was stoked to be on Rokfin, because I know we're not going to get deleted off there at least yet. So I never fucked with YouTube or with the other places people get booted off of all the time. So we're just on normal podcast and Rokfin, and hopefully that'll keep us around. Plus our incognito name, nobody would guess we talk about conspiracies. So
yeah, right. And seeing that you do talk about conspiracies, what kind of brought you to, talk about these things? When did you start realizing that you're being lied to about every fucking thing in the world,
Oh, geez. I'll start it off and I'll pass it over to Jen and then Ben. But it was the way we grew up, me and Ben, being brothers. We grew up in a real fucking, I don't even know how to categorize. Most people wouldn't even understand.
Very religious, very strict.
It was religious and fundamentalist, but to the extreme. Like, we could tell you stories for hours on that. But the way we grew up kind of forced us to question everything, especially things like God and authority in general. So ever since I was of voting age, I didn't trust the voting system at all. And our older brother actually used to try to talk me out of that and be like, dude, it's the only thing we can do. Like, you got to do your duty and vote. And I was like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, there's things controlling shit way above that. It doesn't matter. And he's actually on my page with that now, which is awesome. But yeah, it was just a general distrust of authority. And then you start looking into different things, and then 9/11, JFK. And I mean, they call it a rabbit hole for a reason, because you just start going down. What about you, Abe?
Yeah, no, I mean, same. Just throughout life, having parents, I didn't grow up the same religious background, but extreme strict. And just, we kind of all individually, a long time ago, ran away from that and then made our own way. But we listen to podcasts all the time, or just stories, read books about UFOs, alien abductions, things like that obviously are being hidden from us. But we kind of just listen to it with a grain of salt. And then I think for me, unfortunately, I hate to talk about COVID, but COVID was like very in our face so much. And it kind of brought everything together, where it was like, you know what? They're so blatantly shoving this in our face that it's clearly not real. Something's wrong. And, I mean, I'm not saying it's not real, but there's something weird about it. And then we looked more into it, and then started looking into a million other things. So that kind of, like Joe said, like a rabbit trail, we just kind of jumped in right around March-ish. And there's so much more. So
That 2020 was a great wake up for so many people, and it was also a dumbing down apparently for just as many people. But
Yeah.
Ben, what would you say what your starting point was in this madness?
When it comes to like a logical thing, I've been questioning things for a long time, which was exactly what Joe was saying. That, you know, the way that we were raised is all about blind faith and blind belief in something that you are told is what is true. So logically, as I got older, that didn't really make sense to me. Now, when it comes to like a lot of these global lies, for instance, the COVID thing, hell, things that Cory's brought to our attention, all of those type of things were bigger, in my opinion, than the easy lie that I was raised with and had debunked, in my opinion. So I would honestly say this last year has probably what did the majority of it. I've always entertained people's stories. I've always entertained people's viewpoints, but I usually always walk away with still fundamentally and in a lot of ways conservatively what I believe. And it's just how it's been. This last year has really split my brain open. I just referenced Cory's work on Truthzilla. Was that I was saying, I'm like, he blew my mind, because this is what I've always, you know, considered was history. This is something that I consider was what happened. And when you debunk that type of thing, well, now it's not just being taught to everybody, but it's literally puts into question everything that is happening, what's going to happen. Now you start questioning where it's going. How do I change it? And so for me, this last year and doing the podcast itself didn't just open up my mind to things personally, but it's completely opened my mind to, I don't really care what it is. It could be true. And we don't know enough to really debunk a lot of it, other than just be like, you know, where is the truth, and try to find it.
Yeah. You have, you know, a very similar kind of awakening to mine. You know, mine was quite a few years ago, really, but I'm sure Cory can attest to the amount of history that has been basically rewritten. You know, did it really surprise you, Cory, when you start digging in how much they fucked with our shit?
Oh yeah, like nobody knows shit about shit of the last 100+ years easily. And I can go back, and that was where my fascination really was like, these motherfuckers are lying to us. When did they come up with this stuff? And that inextricably leads you back to the Holocaust and World War II and the birth of psychological warfare. And then you can go back and be like, well, there was government lying before that. So where did we learn the stuff before we started our own intelligence agencies that came up with all these programs of lying and disinformation? And then you can track that stuff back to like the late 1800s, to where really the origins of organized psychological warfare began, right? Like put on paper. And I'm not talking like 2,000-year-old like art of war stuff. I mean like the disinformation, lying, the strategy that surrounds, you know, falsifying history.